Jack and Norma from the Canadian Reel Film Festival.
Who are Canadian film stars from the 1979 film Meatballs. I'm Jessi Burk from Spartan Youth Radio, and we're here with
Norma dell'agnes
and Jack Blum.
Okay, and they are special guest stars from the Canadian film Meatballs. And could you give us a brief summary?
A brief summary of the film?
Yes.
Well, it's about a bunch of CITs, which is counselors in training at a summer camp in Northern Ontario. That was originally the title of the movie, in fact, was Summer Camp. And it stars Bill Murray. And at the time when we started, it was actually a story about the CITs, but then through the various ramifications of making it a palatable film that was short enough to digest, they cut that down and they focused on Bill Murray, and so he ended up being the star. Jack was actually not only one of the stars of the film, he was also the casting director of the film. A lot of people forget that. And it was really a success because not only did kids love it, but parents loved to bring their kids because of the nostalgia value when they remembered when they were at summer camps. And the ticket prices for kids at that time was 75 cents. So just to let you know what a huge hit it was in North America, certainly.
And it remains popular and is something of a classic, the summer camp classic, for that kind of experience.
Yeah, we're always amazed that 31 years after the fact, 32 after we made it, that people, the kids still get so excited by it, and that it's still, if you look up on IMDb, there's still chat boards and they're discussing this tiny detail versus that tiny detail, and it's just amazing to us. And just as a little piece of trivia, it was directed by Ivan Reitman, who went on to do Stripes and Ghostbusters and Twins, and I forget Kindergarten Cop.
One of the most successful Hollywood comedy directors.
And his son, Jayson Reitman, who directed Juno and Up in the Air, which was just nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, was actually a toddler on the set.
A baby, just born.
A baby, sorry. A baby.
Just born and was a baby on the set.
Yeah, so that's how it sort of goes down generation to generation, how long we've been doing it.
I started here at the cloning lab when it began, but now I'm dating myself. Why is Meatballs so important in the Canadian film canon? Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. Meatballs was one of the very first, and maybe the first in terms of scale, because like at that time, $50 million was a big hit. Still is. That's how successful it was. 30 years later, that would still be a successful run. It was the first Canadian film that had that kind of real wide box office appeal, and it won a lot of Canadian Film Awards and launched a bunch of careers. Bill Murray certainly, but also Kate Lynch, who won Best Actress that year. Harvey Atkin, who went on to be one of the regulars on a long-running television series called Cat and Lacey.
And the voice of Leon's,
Leon's Furniture Warehouse, absolutely.
Yeah,
Matt Craven is a working actor in Hollywood now, all these many years.
And it was also one of the first hip films for kids, where it wasn't sort of National Velvet kind of all loveliness and sweetness, but there was a tone of the almost Dennis the Menace to it. And for that reason, I think that kids really connected to it, and especially younger kids were loving to see the older kids interact, because there was quite a range of ages in the movie in terms of the kids. We were playing, I guess, 17-year-olds, but we were the CIT, so the kids that were actually going to the camp were probably the 10 to 12-year-old range, I would say,
There's a classic piece that Bill Murray does in the movie that is seen often, and it is at the point of the big inter-camp contest at the end, where our guys' camp is taking a beating, and it's the point of the rally. And normally, up to that point in movies, you know, the hero or whoever it was would get up and exhort the kids to win for the glory of whatever ideal that he might have been promulgating. And Bill comes in at that point and does a big long speech about how it just doesn't matter. And the refrain of the speech is, it just doesn't matter, and he has everyone chanting, it just doesn't matter, it just doesn't matter. So it was really the first kind of wise-ass anti-Hollywood big happy ending, even though there was one, but it got at it through that funny, who's kidding who? We know it doesn't matter who wins the race. Come on, guys. And that's a really terrific set piece that Bill does at a key moment in the movie that's worth catching, and I'm sure it's on YouTube like everything else.
That movie's just over 30 years old
that is correct.
Or so.
Yeah.
Why do you think that success hasn't been replicated since then, or was it just a perfect storm in 1979 for the right cast, the right crew, the right story, the right...
You mean, is it as in a Canadian film or as a genre film?
As a Canadian film. Yeah, good question. I mean, it was an interesting bunch of talent, particularly Ivan, who obviously went on to become one of the most successful comedy directors in history. So he was pretty smart. And the writing talent, which included my brother Len Blum, but also Harold Ramis, went on to write Ghostbusters and did Groundhog Day and many others. So there was a lot of really, really good young talent there. And I think that was a moment. The film business changes so rapidly and is changing so totally. At that moment, there was a time when a studio could see a film that was made for a little over $1 million, which is what it was made for, and go, yeah, let's pick that up and give it a big push, which is what they did, and have a big release. Nowadays, it is so difficult for a low-budget film to get picked up and get that kind of attention. It's gotten harder and harder and harder.
Focuses on the avatars and all the big budgets.
Big spectacle films.
Yeah, that they can make huge amounts of profit.
Young people, download!
So if you download, you got to think, well, who's going to pay to make this movie? But anyway, let's not moralize.
So what do students need to do today to become the next Ivan Reitman?
Well, I would say to understand story. I think that's the most important thing. Understand the comedy in real life as opposed to just copying what you've seen everywhere, and being true to your roots and finding the comedy and the stories within your own community. Be true to yourself, basically. And when you find that, then you can do it in a really honest way that's not fake and it's not designed by somebody in Hollywood or whatever, but that it comes from an honest place. And I think that those kinds of stories are more universal and people can identify with them because of their truth.
Thank you.
Well, I would just say that I'm not sure students should want to become the next Ivan Reitman or even the next Jayson Reitman, as much as I love his films. I think it's, if you want to try to make films and tell stories, whether you're writing them in scripts or in books or whatever it is, I want to echo what Norma says. What is really important is what you see and what you know and what you feel really, really passionately. On the one hand, and on the other hand, I would really recommend watching a lot of films, if film is what you care about, reading a lot of novels, if novels are what you care about, but watch them and watch them and watch them and watch them and study what people before you have done, because it has all been done, not once or twice, but about a dozen or 24 times, and it's been done really, really, really well. So if you haven't seen Meatballs, see Meatballs. So you know that was a movie made in this country that was one of the most successful movies ever done. You should know what it was. And you should look at all the past successes, whether they were commercial successes or the films of Adam McGowan and David Cronenberg, which have played at the Cannes Film Festival and are world famous, or Deepa Mehta, who's famous around the world for the work she does. Look into those filmmakers, the people that have made movies in your country, and see what kind of stories they're telling. Find a way to tell your stories using the elements of craft that you see when you look at their films. That's what I would suggest.
We're here live at the Canadian Real Film Festival in Sudbury.